stick your hand in there. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, ooh. Oh, yeah, there you go. Oh, hit my walls again. Yeah, there you go. Hit every section of my walls.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Let's Build. Today we have this 22RE after I got all the parts back and everything. And me and Freddie are cleaning this thing up. I like to have everything clean. That's kind of my etiquette. So we have Scotch-Brite, we have a bunch of napkins, we have Purple Power. That's what we mainly use because it seems to work very well, especially with a lot of gunk and grease and everything. We also have brake cleaner that we're using and just other little things like that, which help a lot. The other things we use is razor blade, just to get all the little stubborn gaskets that really get stuck to flat surfaces, and also just a steel brush, just to really get into all those little cracks and crevices. It helps to have a few different brushes, small ones, big ones, or whatever, but the really fine ones, like almost toothbrush like, to get into those little tight spaces, because I kind of like hate having little pieces of gunk, especially when I'm painting over. So I make sure everything's out. It takes a long time, but it looks really nice at the very end. So what we end up doing now is taking off the engine from the engine stand, taking off the engine stand little cradle, and we take apart the rear main seal, just because I know since we're already in this part, I want to replace it now so then I don't have a leak later on. We had a hard time taking off the pilot bearing for the clutch. So my solution most of the time is hitting it with some PV blaster or something that it's like a penetrating fluid, and hitting it with just a propane fire.
Alright, so this is where we're at. The block is pretty much cleaned up, or as best as it's gonna get. I pulled out the rear main sealed and also the bearing, the pilot bearing. I'm gonna be adding a new rear main seal and a new gasket and everything. The things I'm gonna be using is this Permatex spray a gasket. It's pretty good. I had the recommendation from one of my friends, and also this to just have that extra sense of security for this gasket. So yeah.
So all I did here is apply that make a gasket spray just on the block, and then I sprayed a little bit on the gasket, and same with the rear cover. I cleaned the rear cover so that's why it looks nice with the new gasket, and I just evenly pressed it in. Also make sure to also go in a crisscross pattern when you're bolting down this part, because if it doesn't go even, you're gonna have a bad time with the leak.
Alright, so this is where we're at. We're about to put the head on. The surface of the deck is not the greatest, but I guess we'll see what happens in a few months after we complete this. We'll see. What the? Is that a cat in the?
Yeah.
Damn, that bug got fucked up. Yeah, it's not the greatest thing. I felt like the previous gasket really dug into the deck. If you can kind of see those bites, like we try to, I guess, sand it off, try to smooth it out as best as we can, and it wasn't coming off. So I guess we'll see what happens in a few months. Hopefully they last me at least a year or two. If not, then oh well, I guess we're gonna go ahead with the plans for this truck. So here's the head, what we're gonna be putting in. That's a brand new head from the Yoda shop, and this is what we're gonna be using. This is from the Yoda shop also. It's just a full engine assembly gasket kit. Kind of surprised that they gave me a metal head gasket. These are the new head bolts.
This thing's kind of heavy.
Yeah. Damn. That's nice. Dude, that looks really nice. Did it with new dowel pins. Alright, so the plan so far is just wipe it down, lube the cylinder walls a little bit, get this head onto here, and I guess we'll call it good for today.
Know what I'm saying?
Oh, stick your hand in there. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, ooh. Oh, yeah, there you go. Oh, hit my walls again. Yeah, there you go. Hit every section of my walls.
They don't fit.
Huh?
They don't fit.
What the hell is that?
So the dowel pins that they provided us actually goes on top of the head. For some reason I thought it went in between the head and the block, but they actually go on top of here, and this is where the valve train sits, like all the lifters and rocker arms. So this is the metal head gasket. I'm going to be using this Permatex copper sprayer gasket, which is actually really good. I do recommend this to use this on anything that has to do with heat, like for example a head gasket, exhaust manifold, and especially our situation here with this deck. Hopefully this thing seals up pretty damn good, like I'm hoping. So I guess if it fails, I don't think it's going to be the fault of this. I think it's just that the deck is kind of not the greatest surface that you want to put a gasket on, but I guess we'll see what happens. So one thing I do recommend is just hitting this with a bit of brake clean, because it does have some just oil, just so it doesn't rust, which is pretty nice just in case this thing does sit in your garage or just wherever for a few days, few weeks. So I do recommend that. The other thing I do recommend is just checking to see, like, all these little passages. These casts are OEM, so there may be a little burrs in there inside these chambers. So it's a good thing that you should check. I already checked this, and so far everything's pretty good. The quality of this is actually pretty nice, so I'm really surprised for that. So this is the situation right now. So I don't know, so I was putting in the head, I put in the head bolts, and I completely forgot that we had a situation with removing the head on the previous time. So if you look in here, see if it focuses. Oh, it doesn't want to focus. See how dirty that is? So the threads aren't going in on the bolts, and making it really hard for the head bolts to actually like screw in, because there's a lot of gunk in there. So now Freddie want to go get his thread cleaner to clean out these threads, because this is not gonna happen.
In this section we used a thread cleaner that Freddie had. It's a little cheap unit, it's very affordable. We got it I think at Harbor Freight. It was maybe like $20, but it has a bunch of different thread pitches, metric and standard, and we just cleaned up the threads because they were really dirty. There was a bunch of gunk in there, and the new head bolts, they weren't going in, so we cleaned out all of them. The head bolts went in smooth, so that's what we're doing here. I highly recommend it, just having a pack of those like in your garage or something, because you never know, you're gonna come across this and how you're gonna clean those threads out. Here we're able to seat the head properly with the head gasket applied with copper spray, and we put everything in. We put the new head with the drivetrain with all the rockers and everything, so everything goes in, the head bolts go in just fine, so everything starts getting torqued down. We also use assembly lube just because this is going to get started up in the next few days, and we don't want anything to be just dry, just without any certain type of oil or lubrication around. Once everything's kind of settled in, I kind of hand thread, I guess you could say, all the bolts down, make sure everything's clamping down onto the head, so everything kind of goes down even. After that, there's 3 steps that you have to torque the head in. So it'll be 20 foot-pounds of torque, and then it'll be 50, and then 62, the final one for the 22 RE. You have to do it also in a specific order, which I have a picture here. And we just followed the book. Basically, that's all we did. It's actually very simple. It's not as intimidating as people think. As long as you follow directions, you should be fine. That's basically all we got for today. We put in the head, we cleaned the block, everything was torqued down. We're gonna be putting the rest of the stuff on the next video and finally actually assembling this whole engine all together. So hopefully you guys like this video, and we'll catch you on the next one. All right, see ya.